You've got the dot too.
Welcome to Cloud Dialogues, everybody. We are back. We are
Again.
back post Sydney Summit. Matt has survived Sydney Summit. How are you
Yes.
feeling?
A bit more relaxed today. It's been a lot of talking with lots of people for the last 3 days pretty much.
Have COVID
Um,
yet?
no, I won't. I shouldn't. I don't feel sick. It's
That's
all good.
good. That's
Um,
positive.
yeah, it was actually pretty big. There was probably back in the day pre-COVID, I think they got up to 20,000 people in 2019. I looked up the numbers. Um, Last year was a couple of thousand.
I think it's exciting that everyone's back in person. I just feel like it's so healthy for everybody to be together in person. I
Yeah,
know people have a stab at me about saying we should go to the office, but I mean, I don't say we should go to the office full time, but I think seeing people is good for
yeah,
us. I think it's healthy.
it's a good
That's great.
balance. This year, I think it was sort of in the range of 10,000, but I don't know what the
Wow,
official.
that's great
I don't know what the official number was, but the theatre I think holds 7,000. So there must have been
for the
kind of at
keynote.
least, yeah, there must have been at least that many.
Awesome. So we're gonna briefly cover off on all things ANZ, ANZ Sydney Summit. We're gonna briefly cover off on all things
You sound like an American.
Sydney Summit. Why?
ANZ.
ANZ.
ANZ. You've
When
been
I
away too long.
write, when I write, people that are really pedantic will be like, "Why are you switching between like British English,
Oh, really?
Australian English, American English?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm not perfect."
That's right. We all have that problem.
Seriously. Anyway, so tell us what happened on day one.
Day one. Oh, hang on, I'll start with day zero. Day zero was the partner day, but that wasn't. There was a few bits and pieces there, and the main thing I got out of that was like probably finding out who was around and chatting, and there was a few partner things that were useful for us, but it was a kind of a pre-mingle for the mingling,
Prep day,
a prep day,
a
yeah, pretty much.
socialization day.
So that was Tuesday, and then Wednesday was the sort of the main event, the Builders' Day they called it. The Builders' Day on day one and the Innovation Day on day two. So the Builders' Day, the big announcement was Bedrock in Sydney. So that was the big announcement in the morning. Uh,
And how do you think that will help
so
AWS customers, Matt? Is it just going to make like AI faster? Is it going to be cheaper?
or
Like what is the
well, probably for the regulated industries, especially who can't use out of country.
it's for data sovereignty. Okay,
Yeah,
right. Okay, that's amazing. I feel like for the public sector that's
yeah,
potentially life-changing.
yeah. But only 10 out of the 23 models are available at launch. So I think probably
Okay.
so,
Still, you would think they would increase quickly, right? Because they
yeah,
usually launch absolute bare minimum
yep.
and then, and to be honest, I think it's a good approach.
Yeah, they should iterate fairly quickly, I would hope. So, and also not all the functionality is available at launch. I think there's some pieces like guardrails and stuff that might not be available, but
Right.
that should come. But at least it gets enough. There should be enough to get started with experimentation and all that sort of thing. Most of the keynotes and announcement and the demos and everything were obviously all Gen AI focused because
Yeah.
that's the thing for the last 12 months, really.
Do you think it was a bit too much? Do you think it's a bit too much, Gen AI?
Yeah, it is. I
Because
think it
I did
is.
see some commentary around it just feels like it's the Gen A, and I get it. And I do think that, and I think everyone's probably heard me say this before. I think a lot of the time when we have a new technology, everyone gets into their head that this is the answer to everything,
Yep.
and it's just not, right?
Yep.
Like we know that. Like it's about really deeply thinking about your business problem or the customer that you're trying to serve instead of like deferring to a technology immediately. And I think it feels like that sort of happens,
Yeah, I
you
think
know.
that's pretty much right. It makes people think about what they want to solve, and it makes them think about you can't just turn on Gen AI because Gen AI still needs data, and you still
Yeah.
need to unlock your data. So it makes people think, oh, hang on, they want to do this thing. Where's my data? Oh, hang on, I need to build I need to expose my
build my
data
data lake or
first.
whatever.
And
Yeah,
I need to
yeah.
get my data out. I need to
Find my
set up
data.
I need to find my
A lot of
data. Yeah.
customers are like, I don't even like where I have data in all these different places and I don't know how to use it.
It's always down the back
Normal.
it's always down the back of the couch or something, right? So they've got to find their
In the jacket pocket somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's good because it's like for people in the industry like us, if there's some excitement about a technology, we can help with use cases and help figure out how that they can answer the questions that they want to answer. Sometimes Gen AI actually isn't the way to solve the problem much of the time because machine learning's been around for many years now. And a lot of the standard models, not even large language models, are useful for many use cases. And a lot of the existing AWS services are good enough for a lot of the existing use cases. So it really depends
Machine
on
learning.
what exactly what people want to do. And the other thing is with Bedrock, you've got to be careful about the costs because it can get expensive, especially if you're going to production. But Bedrock is good for quick experimentation and then turning it off when you're done. And then if you want to go into production, you can actually run the models yourself kind of in a managed way using SageMaker, and it's a lot less expensive than Bedrock. So that's kind of a little tip there that I got told that a lot of people are doing. I think
that was the main
takeaway for day one. Oh, and also there was some showcasing around Leonardo.ai. I don't know if you've heard of them. They've been around for
I'm
about
big on Claude. Big on Claude, Matt. Claude is like my best friend.
Oh, Leonardo.ai.
Whenever people ask me, like, who did this work? I'm like, Claude helped me.
Claude helped. Yeah, Claude is one of the big models.
And they're like, oh, is that your new junior? Yeah.
Claude. Be good, Claude. Claude. I think part of Claude is available in Sydney too.
Ooh.
Which is good. So
I'll need that when I'm back in Australia next month.
Leonardo.ai is actually it's not a large language model. It's a startup that do asset production via AI. So videos, graphics, backdrops.
Just like for marketing?
Characters. Well, they started in games, but now it's used in pretty much, I think, every industry, retail marketing. I think they said retail marketing, real estate, media, and a few other things.
Kind of scary, like how, like to think that you're like looking at an ad like for some clothes or whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe the model is not a real person.
I know. Well, that's the thing. A lot of this stuff, these days you don't really know if they're real or not. I mean, if someone's got like 10 fingers on one hand, they're probably not real, but
2 thumbs.
That's right. So they've been around for not that long, and they grew from 6 to 100 employees in a year.
Wow,
it's crazy.
I wonder if that sort of growth will be sustainable in the long term. Like, I wonder if with the cost of compute and obviously like people's preferences change over time, right? To be honest, when I'm looking at ads and models, I would rather know that I'm looking at a real person.
I know.
I find it kind of like
more realistic. It speaks to you better. Yeah,
and there's a person. There's like that's a person. Like when you wear the clothes, it's like it's the person in the clothes. It's not just the clothes. Yeah. Right. I mean,
that's the whole experience. Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to go back in the opposite direction. People are going to want more human, but anyway, that's just rambling. Never mind.
Rambling.
What about day 2?
So day 2 was a bit of a history lesson, actually. And I was a little bit confused as to why they were giving us a history lesson. So the telegraph.
About telegraph.
The telegraph was sending messages in the 1800s.
Going back in time just a little bit.
Exactly. Because before the telegraph came to Australia, the only way to get information out and in was via ship. And that was like a 44-day trip one way. So to get back to London. So when the telegraph came, it was a big deal. And 1872 is when it came to Australia, and there was the overland telegraph went from Darwin to Adelaide. And then that pretty much connected the north and the south, and then it sort of went out. A lot of that's on Wikipedia if anyone's interested. But the point of this conversation is, well, you might ask, why is this relevant to tech? Well, I'm glad you
Yeah.
asked, right? Because Amazon have this project Kuiper, which they also uh, showcased during that day 2 keynote. And that's a pretty ambitious plan to launch 3,000 satellites to provide internet for all. And its mission is to bring fast and affordable broadband to unserved and underserved communities around the world. So, yeah, it is probably a competitor to Starlink. I think they do it slightly differently. But it's good to have, an alternative to someone who's already, existing in the market. So that's
Well, I mean,
been
competition is important,
it
right?
is it is, and
And it's not like they don't have the resources.
yeah, exactly. So they did their first launch in 2023, and they did some demos. I think they bought something. They showed a video of buying something from Amazon.com via the satellite, and they also tested some Amazon Prime streaming as well. So that was kind of in
No
some
advertising
garage.
going on here.
That's right, exactly. And basically, the whole point of this discussion was that they were announcing that the first services will start in 2025, so next year, and a lot of the initial prototype testing will be in Australia. So, and
Exciting. I mean, it's a perfect place to test this sort of stuff because it's so big and vast. And like, if you can
remote,
get it
yeah,
right in Australia, then, you're probably good for most other places, right?
exactly. And one of the other differentiators, I guess, around this solution is that not only do satellites talk to the ground stations, they're scattered around the world, but they're like a big mesh and they talk to each other in space as well. So I think there's multiple ways that they can communicate, around the place. So, which probably gives a lot more availability and, ability to withstand failures. So it's interesting. And so something to watch in the next year or so when that comes online. Oh, I guess the last thing I'll talk about is the Swimming Australia. They showcased their machine learning. They've
Oh,
been
yeah.
working with AWS since 2019.
It's been a long time.
I think Tokyo Olympics was the first one that they used their. So they used machine learning to help inform the coaching and the strategy around what the players do. Are they players? No, they're swimmers. And they actually, when they were deciding whether to use AWS or not, they viewed what AWS have been doing with Formula One as hey, this is interesting. This could be actually suitable for us as well. So it's interesting how one sport can sort of
Oh,
inform.
I think I would love to do it with horses.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
myself, I would love to put
Questions.
sensors on the horse, and because I feel like you could, but the problem is that it's so expensive. Like the amount of data that you
Yeah.
are consuming and processing, it just becomes so insanely expensive. It'd be good if there was a solution for that.
Interesting. Let's think about that. And that'd actually provide different sort of challenges as well,
Because
I
you
think.
could, like potentially maybe get to a point where you can predict injuries and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Which is
with
kind
that
of
level of
yeah.
data.
Which I think they do that in the swimming world as
Yeah,
well. So
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I
and
believe that's my understanding.
one of the things that they do is they use computer vision as well to track, strokes and speed, distance per stroke rate, all that sort of stuff. And they use it in the training pools. Training pools are complex, as Jess, who was speaking, said, and because there's multiple people in one lane, and you've got to figure out how to deal with all those different scenarios because they're just a chaotic environment. So with Paris Olympics this year, they're really well underway for their training, and the coaches have these dashboards that they showcased, and it just the amount of stuff you can do with all that data, and obviously AWS is powering all
So
that stuff.
interesting. So
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, the key highlights. There was a whole bunch of other things. If people are interested, you can look at the live streams. Maybe we'll put the link in the show notes of anyone can register for the live streams. I think they'll be online for a month. I'm not sure why it's only a month. Maybe
That's weird.
they'll move to YouTube or
Move to
something after
YouTube?
that.
Yeah, okay.
That's
They'll move to
probably
YouTube.
why, I suspect. Not an official advice, but that's what I suspect will happen. Cool.
Awesome. Well, Matt, we will let you recover
I will. I'll recover and have my weekend
from
now.
your few days of, I don't want to say a few days of partying, but I think we should be
There wasn't
realistic.
huge amount of partying. I was fairly
Don't
busy.
lie to me. Don't
There was a
lie to
lot.
me.
There was a lot of food. I can tell you that. A lot of food and a little bit of
That's
wine.
very important. I feel like steak is essential for conferences.
Yes, there was steak. There definitely was steak.
And wine.
And a bit of wine.
5 bottles of wine at the
That's right.
table.
So I think that's all. We'll see you next episode. And if anyone has feedback, obviously we have the feedback at cloud-dialogues.com if you're interested. And thank you for your support.
We will see
everyone
you next
listening.
time.
Goodbye.